I love writing. I like looking at things with an otherworldly and surreal perspective. Ever since I was 13 and felt my first surge of hormonal emotions, I scribbled it in uneven lines and curves and called it a poem. But I also internalized the expectation that people like me are supposed to be intense and even have a dark side. Soon, I started craving an unhealthy isolation, hoping to create something out of the edgy air that enveloped me. I took it as a curse and not a blessing, to feel too much, too deeply. Feelings of achievement in writing severely emo poetry clouded my judgment, and I lost touch with myself and what really made me happy anymore. That's when I noticed a pattern. Remember the Britney Spears meltdown in 2007? Yeah, pictures of a freshly shaved head were on every hot gossip tabloid. The paparazzi paraded after her, called her an out-of-shape, washed-up hillbilly. All that in the midst of a battle with drug addiction, a recent divorce, a failed comeback in the music industry, and losing custody of her 2 sons. We find ourselves public figures on the verge of spiraling, or even deceased artists who may or may not have acclaimed fame, but we sensationalize a cry for help. And if you think there's something romantic about an artist on the brink of instability being resurrected by thoughtless idealization, I'm going to have to ask you to think it over. Now, if we all visualize a writer, we'd probably find him cornered in a dark room, frustrated with life, tossing torn balls of paper into the waste paper basket. That's assumed behavior. Or maybe another sphere. Let's think of a musician who's on the peak of her career, who's abusing drugs behind closed doors. Because of course that's where she gets her eccentric mainsprings. Not the fact that she's actually talented or creative, not at all. You see, we as an audience love the emotions stirred up by work that is unconventional. A study conducted led to the belief that because of this very cliche, people infer the work made by an eccentric individual to be of way more value than work made by a conforming individual. What's wrong with this is that we don't even consider their work authentic till they suffer from any sort of problem or disorder. Granted, there are a lot of mentally ill artists entering these domains, but that's only because there's so much more toleration and acceptance present here. But to think of how limited our opinions have become. And to be candid, sure, some of these notions do make sense, that any experimental genre is grim. The rabbit hole appears because of the maelstrom of rejection and self-doubt. But rather than facing these predicaments head-on, we've just become so accustomed to them, because for the outside world, they're just a price to pay. We're so consumed with these conjectures, so much that we made an entire club about it. The infamous 27 Club. Here's where it gets interesting. This club names moguls like Kurt Cobain, Jimi Hendrix, and Jim Morrison, among others, all who died at 27 due to various causes and dominated the music industry at one point. A conspiracy theory links the club with the occult, saying that these musicians' catastrophic deaths were a result of them selling their soul to Satan. That's right, Satan. We've gone to such extents to deny how we've kept our artists in such a constricted mold that we point fingers on the devil. Oh, and there's also a theory which says that they all died with Bic lighters in their pockets. And with that logic, I'm just waiting for 70% of Delhi's population to drop dead. You see, they're all artists with the scope to grow as artists and as individuals. We want an evolution of their work, yet we don't give them much leeway to do so. We get the rock and roll persona, but if we don't get the same disposition after they blow up in fame, we're disappointed, because according to us, now they lack their original quintessence. The icon, Amy Winehouse, was put under immense pressure by her label to write and release an album. Even when she repeatedly pleaded for more time to get the creative juices flowing more naturally, they simply threatened to kick her out. You may know Elizabeth Gilbert, the author of Eat, Pray, Love, and former diner waitress, was being hit with rejections back-to-back before her best-selling breakthrough. She thought of it as a game of tennis. For every rejection being smashed into her court, She rose to the challenge and sent out another submission elsewhere. She took the upper hand and she put out Eat, Pray, Love, which is pretty much a self-help Bible for people alike. And in fact, reading that very book turned most of us into spiritual, meditative yogis with a self-indulgent gelato addiction. Any person who works tirelessly to succeed as an artist, a poet, a musician, or to delve into any creative venture needs to have the mental toughness to bulldoze through insurmountable rejections. If a person is manically depressed or miserable, they can't face the rejection or the long hours of work. Yet we associate artists with melancholy and depression. Personally, every time I try to tell someone I write poetry, I'm met with bamboozled glares. And then they ask me that golden question. Wow, are you depressed? No, I'm not. Another time, I got into a heated argument and someone called me a rejected melancholic poet. Not only is that totally uninformed, but that's really ignorant. Because artists have the leverage to take despair, to take sadness, and turn it into hopeful art which touches lives. How could you give that a bad name? Here's a piece I wrote on this very prevalent issue. Lines are diaphanous, delicate as they are between a push to glory and a push over the edge. Pop a bottle of bubbly, drink to celebration. Congratulations on your success, greeted with smiles, adorned with love, jealousy, pride, and admiration. What next? Stagger to confined havens. A little something to take the edge off. Shoot up H, up your veins. A rush of dopamine, the fourth of a day. A battle lost already. The graveness of a no, of a human hand, of anything but a camera flash, of honest eye contact, of love to grow and create, not the desperation to simulate. The art in bursts, the face of amusement, never heard of before bemusement given a new rise. A battle won before it's finally over. So let's not hold artists prisoners of their own image. What artists do is beautiful. Art, as they say, is our only salvation from the horror of existence. But more than that, it's an art in itself. To pour out your heart, expose the deepest parts of your soul, oblivious to what may come next. That sort of courage to create perpetually is noteworthy and something our Braveheart artists do with each stroke on their canvas, each note sung out loud, and every word on paper. Let artists manifest this while in a positive and supportive environment, because it's much easier to create out of passion and love rather than self-driven anguish and pity. Thank you.